I always am constantly trying to get across to you not only just how split the parliamentary Conservative Party is, but this fragmentation of the parliamentary party over the last sort of really since the end of Boris Johnson has now started to fracture the non-parliamentary party as well. And it is going to be interesting to see how different this fragmentation of the party ends up being, because you're seeing the complete and utter shattering of the Westminster party, and now these cracks are starting to seep in to the non-parliamentary party. Because I was a bit spoilt for choice for you today. I didn't know which one one of these I was going to do, because I could have done this one, or I could have done the other one. And we'll get into in fact, no, we will get into that one now. And what are these articles? Well, the article that we're going to go over today is the one by Miles Bassett. And to be honest, Miles, look, if you ever fancy reaching out and having a conversation, and just for context, I'm a Labour Party member, I would love to have you on here and we'll have a conversation about whatever you want. Pick the topic, we'll have a convo on it. I would love to have sort of a conversation with you. Because to be honest, after reading the article, my essentially response to the end of this article is my friend, have you ever considered maybe becoming a leftist, maybe becoming a progressive? Because some of the things you want the Conservative Party to do, they would never do. And bear in mind, I think the Labour Party is far more likely to do some of the stuff you have mentioned, but the Conservative Party would never touch what you are suggesting with a barge pole. And hilarious enough, I don't know if you've seen it, and I'd be, again, something else we have had a conversation. I'd be very interested in bringing up to you what you think to the response that the one of the people at the Institute of Economic Affairs, the men behind free market fundamentalism themselves, has sort of written a rebuttal to you, saying, free market fundamentalism? What do you mean free market fundamentalism? We never did free market fundamentalism. Again, all the things the Liz Truss has done, pretty much most of what the Conservative Party advocate for constantly on a daily basis when it comes to sort of economic affairs. The list goes on. So if you happen to see this, Miles, reach out to me. I'd be very interested in having a conversation with you. I genuinely would. I think it'd be quite fun. But I have to say, reading your article already, my initial response to you would be, have you ever considered maybe socialism? You know, I'd hate to say it, guy, but you know. So anyway, we're going to go into this because I think this just goes to show you, certainly, the split that is happening in the wider Conservative Party, and it honestly, this is hilarious. But I have to say to you, Miles, what you're advocating for, the Conservative Party would never ever do in a month of Sundays, and I think you know it. And whether this was just whether you're in sort of a transitional stage yourself, you may very well be, and maybe this was why you wrote this, to say, hey, maybe we should sort of consider giving up this free market, fundamentalist attitude that we have in the party. That ain't going to happen anytime soon. It is not going to happen anytime soon, my friend. But anyway, we'll get onto this because, yeah. Oh boy, this is getting interesting. So this comes, before we do that though, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And also down below, there are links to my Patreon page, my one donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can all buy me coffee. There is the Pony Club down below. There is the YouTube thank you button as well. But as always, do remember to click the like button, click the share button, click the bell, ring the bell, all that good stuff. And of course, let's crack on with this. So over we go today to Conservative Home to have a look at this, written by Miles Bassett, with the title of "The Free Market Has Become an Idol, and the Conservatives Must Tear It Down." Good luck. Good luck. So, anyway, he starts off with, all political parties inevitably develop their own quasi-religions with their own messiahs, deities, and antichrists. And the deity worshipped by the Conservatives for the past 40 years has been the free market, with any attempt at interventionism bringing howls of heresy from its ardent followers. So I have to say this to you, Miles. If you know so fully and completely the Conservative Party is so committed to this ideal of free markets, then I have to ask, why are you a young Conservative? Or maybe, oh no, sorry, you were a former young Conservative chair. I don't know if you are still. You maybe be a member of the Conservative Party. I don't know. But it seems to me you've come to the realization that the Conservatives, when it comes to sort of economic policies, are not going to deliver what really needs to bring fundamental change to the UK. And it's kind of funny, and I get the feeling this post you wrote was almost in a knee-jerk reaction to this. I get that feeling. I don't know, but that's the feeling I get from reading this. So let's continue. So, as a result of this blind faith in free market economics, you mean like Liz Truss? Oh boy. The Conservative Party has demonstrated a remarkable willingness to sacrifice large parts of Britain's civic identity to market forces, being public ownership of almost anything it decried. Large British companies are actively encouraged to be sold and broken up. The publicly funded BBC is mercilessly attacked and ridiculed, and established companies such as Eurostar are left to go bust, instead of course, receiving government support. And national security has been sacrificed in the pursuit of delivering infrastructure as cheaply as possible with Chinese investment. And all that has been done by this current Conservative government for the past 13 years in spades. So I seriously have to ask, how do you seriously turn like the Conservatives around? How do you actually say, well, no, actually interventionism is good? How do you say that regulations are good? How do you encourage them? For again, you use the Eurostar example. How do you encourage them to go, okay, no, we've got to support Eurostar? Because we saw during the pandemic and Rishi Sunak doing the eat out to help out thing was decried by many of your fellow Conservatives as Rishi Sunak just proved that socialism can work. just a thought, my friend. Maybe you should consider socialism. So the result is that the British conservatism has been warped into a kind of modern iconoclasm, and there is very little other value in Britain other than that of money. Again, I have to say in response to this, my friend, you probably should not be in the Conservative Party, because the Conservative Party is not the party for you if you are advocating this at all. So, free markets seem to have little room for more abstract concepts such as identity and belonging. Well, I would argue that neither does that at all. But I would agree with you to a point that that's sort of what people really do want, some sort of identity and belonging. And you know, the driving force, especially of capitalism, has been to drive people away from that, to make people feel more lonely. And ultimately, capitalism has been sort of responsible for that. So back to it. And recent conservative governments have seemed to be incredibly relaxed about it, given the extraordinary lackadaisical attitude that previous conservative chancellors have taken of takeovers of British companies over the past 13 years, which have not been praised but encouraged. One example I know you're missing here is the ARM takeover. Britain's only homegrown chip manufacturer maker has been allowed to be bought out by, well, essentially an American company. And ultimately, now that we're out of the EU, other big companies could come over and see, oh, you've got, oh, no, actually, you do mention ARM. Sorry, I forgot that you do mention ARM later on in the article. Sorry, pardon that. So, yeah, them doing this would just allow them to pick up British companies, take what they wanted, and just dispense with any of those jobs in Britain. We need this kind of sort of defense of these companies, and the EU offered that. I'd be very interested to know what your actual take on what it was being in the EU and what you think now, and what your opinion is now. Have you shifted your opinion now? Do you think differently? Do you think we should rejoin? Again, all these questions I would love to sort of ask you. But anyway, we'll continue. So he continues. For example, in 2014, George Osborne shrugged off Pfizer's proposed takeover of AstraZeneca, at the time as a, quote, commercial matter between two companies. And thank God that didn't happen. Imagine what British vaccine response could have been like if that had happened. Pfizer admitted that the takeover would result in a jobs cuts and reduction in R&D. Again, good that didn't happen, but it is something that we should be considered, because also AstraZeneca, not just a British company, Swedish company, and another country heavily involved in AstraZeneca. I can't remember what it is now, but yeah, might be another Nordic country, but yeah, someone will know in chat. But anyway, similarly, Osborne's successor, Philip Hammond, rejoiced at SoftBank's takeover of ARM in 2016 as a sign that Britain was open for business. Again, it was very, very bad that statement was made, and would have massive technological repercussions for something that was, again, homegrown here in the UK. Because as we've talked about it before, once these type of companies are sort of sold, very often they just go, bought, disappear, and just are absorbed into another big mass conglomerate, and that's it. It's gone from Britain permanently. We've seen this happen to various other companies throughout the past. So it is extremely disheartening to have governments that are so enthusiastically careless with our national creations. Where is the comfort of being, quote, open for business to British workers of the UK PLC, who insistently toil away at companies that are told to have no intrinsic value beyond their share price? My friend, have you considered socialism as an alternative to capitalism, and maybe about sort of, maybe shared ownership? Maybe British workers should have actually shares in this company, maybe have a seat at the table, have a democratic say at what goes on in these big companies. So, no other country in the world, certainly not France, Germany, or the United States, would actively praise a takeover of their strategic industries by foreign companies. Again, exactly. I've been 100% back you. They absolutely wouldn't. So, with this political economy, the Conservative Party's vision for Britain begins to look almost medieval, run by narrow and individualistic corporational interests, which have put very little or no control over. Yeah, we are. Capitalism has been allowed to run riot, and we are now entering, as Marx said, late stage capitalism. We are here, my dude, and that is very much the reality of the situation you are prescribing. And the only alternative we have to this is ideas on the left of shared ownership, of interventionism, of national ownership, things that the Conservatives have never liked, never want to do, and would never even go near. because, as you said at the beginning, it's considered complete and absolutely heresy to do such a thing. So I have to ask you, and a very sincere question, why on earth are you a member of the Conservative Party if you think that? But so where were we? Control. Such a society does not fulfill the void in the heart of the individual who lacks a feeling of belonging. No amount of Johnson era flag waving is going to change that. This is surely what is causing the restless and bored population to look for extreme political changes, such as Brexit or Scottish nationalism, to find that sense of belonging which our economics cannot provide. It's shocking that free marketeers have learnt so little from the political and tumultuous of the mid 2010s, and it is no surprise that Andy Melton, the director of UK in a Changing Europe, recalls warning at a Newcastle audience of Brexit's potential hit to GDP, to which a member of it replied, "That's your GDP, not mine." Again, it'd be fascinating to have a conversation with you about some of the Brexit stuff because Brexit has hurt our GDP, and ultimately, it has hurt his GDP. That would be my response to that. If someone said, "Oh, that's your GDP, not mine," well, I've said sorry, but it's your GDP as well. It's all our GDP, and that has proven to be true, unfortunately, because again, Brexit's promises about the unlimited potential of us buccaneering around the world have not come true. But there you go. So that audience member, I'm sure, would be distraught to find that 6 years after Brexit's vote, the carelessness still exists. Conservatives such as David Frost may dismiss the claim that the context exists between free markets and community, stubbornly declaring that only the former can bring prosperity. But we've had decades of free markets and Brexit still happened. Exactly. I think this is why, again, Keir Starmer is right, calling for more devolution, calling for communities, calling for more, local control over what people have, that they get to choose their destiny. I think that is really going in the right direction. That is what they want. And giving people that is important. And here's the thing, some people on the left do actually laugh at the idea of giving more local people an option to do that. But I think because we have such low local turnout, it's because people feel that they can't make a change in their local community. But as I've actively said before, book recommendation for you: Paint Your Town Red. I would generally love to see, or at least hear, what your would be after reading Paint Your Town Red. Again, a guide to bringing socialism to your local town and community in very easy possible ways. And we actually have seen it make big successes in places like Preston, Wakefield, and other places that are following that model. Guess what? They're all Labour councillors. So I have to ask you once again, are you in the right party? Because it doesn't seem like you are. But he continues. Yes, things are changing. The Johnson era and COVID has eased the Conservatives' worship of the free market somewhat. Yeah, I no, absolutely not. The Johnson era did not ease the worship of the free market, and if essentially Johnson sort of encouraged it, and COVID, there has been such a backlash by conservatives against many of the practices of what was done during COVID to help people out. Sorry, it has not eased the free market at all. If anything, it has entrenched it. And bear in mind, the guy who wrote a response piece to this saying, "Oh, what do you mean? Free market? We haven't even tried free market." It's the same thing you hear many sort of hardcore communists saying. "What do you mean we've tried communism? That was never true communism." He basically did that in a response piece to this, saying, "Free markets? What do you mean? That we've never tried free markets. We haven't done the real free market." It's the exact same thing that the Brexiteers say. "What do you mean Brexit? We haven't done Brexit hard enough yet." Again, it's all tied up. We're still worshipping that free market economism. Now, yes, it has sort of receded back a bit because of Liz Truss very much sort of enabled that, but they haven't gone anywhere. They're still in the Conservatives and they are still preaching that free market agenda. So, but he continues though. So, with the creation of Great British Railways and Great British Energy, again, even though it is, they would never ever admit that it is nationalistic, and it's nowhere near, I would say, the type of nationalism, especially with railways, that we really need to sort of really transform sort of rail travel here in the UK. Is nowhere near the amount of need because it's still a lot of private companies. And of course, what happens, private companies don't care about the actual average traveler, where they're having good connections, good links. It's all about how much money they are passing over to the shareholders at the end of the day. And as a result, we have seen rail companies for years make massive profits, hand over massive dividends over to their shareholders, and then absolutely nothing go to the care, maintenance, or updates or rail of the care of their rail. And even though your Conservative government has tried for years to encourage them to invest in the railways, it hasn't happened. Even HS2, which would be amazing if they were to properly commit to doing HS2, would be amazing. Johnson, again, change during the Johnson era, he cancelled the northern leg of HS2, which is a massive, massive setback for travel and rail travel in the north. But anyway, you continue. So the government has finally realized seeking ever greater Chinese investment is really a good thing after all. But the Conservative Party must wake up and realize that free market worship isn't constructive at all. It's destructive iconicalism. And after the last 40 years of deindustrialization, mixed feelings of globalism, 2008, populism, COVID and Ukraine, climate change, housing shortages, dogmatic free market ideology will soon start to look irrelevant, especially to a future electorate that refuses to let go of the left as they age. Oh my word! You've fallen for the trap, my friend. You've fallen for the trap. So one of the big things that Conservatives love to say is that people on the left haven't grown out. That they're still children because of their left wing crazy ideas. But of course, it's the refusal to actually engage with ideas on the left. Again, love to have a conversation about you that. If you really do believe that, I would love to sort of challenge you on some of the things with some actual lefty ideas we could do in the UK, especially when it comes to sort of. I'm pretty sure you would agree to, especially if I told you that they weren't sort of, uh, you know, uh, sort of left to begin with. I am pretty sure you would agree to quite a lot of things, which, as I've said before, you would probably find yourself, you're in the wrong party, my friends. So, anyway, let's finish this off. So, flag waving and monarchy is not enough. It is not enough for the British people to feel comfortable in their community. The Tories of the 2030s will need to make a complete clean break with the 1980s. I do not think they will. They are far too comfortable and far too set in their ways. That is not the Tory party ever would really need to recognise. We can think of new ideas. You can, but you haven't put any forward, which speaks to the Stonewall idea that your party has about where it needs to go, and it can only really think in terms of the free market and more hard right ideas. That is not what it seems to be going, but that's the direction it seems to be going in your party. And again, I have to ask, are you really in the right party if that is the direction of travel the Conservative are going in? Anyway, you continue. And a return to the older ones to conserve and protect the institutions that make up the social fabric of this country, without living in fear of Margaret Thatcher's scorn. If the Conservative Party does not leave 1986 behind, the public will ultimately leave it behind. Exactly. And this is what we're seeing at the moment. Conservatives still massively down in the polls. They're really not producing any sort of serious good ideas. Like I say, Rishi Sunak running on the past 13 years of conservative leadership is going to be disastrous for him, because look at the end of the Labour government. Look at 1997, where we won. Look at where they left the UK in a far, far better state. Say what you will about Blair or Brown, but they left the UK in a far, far better state than they took it on. Whereas the Conservatives took on the UK and have made it actively worse in every single metric you can think of: education, economy, personal wealth, personal debt has increased. They've increased the debt by billions of pounds, but saying that they were going to we're going to lower it. Every single metric you can think of, they have made the UK actively worse. So why on earth should we ever consider the Conservative Party when they have shown actively they are just not capable of governing, and they are not even capable of bringing forward good ideas that would even benefit the UK? Because we've had 13 years of a party that is supposedly very patriotic and meant to care and conserve about the UK, but has shown over its decade-long rule now that it has not even cared or conserved one bit. So, as always, thank you very much. And like I say, if you ever fancy a chat, I'm here. You know how to get me. You can contact me on Twitter. Like I say, I would love to set something up, because I think a conversation between you and me would be quite fun. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and a donation link called Buy Me Coffee, which you all buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, we'll see you all next time.